get started. All right, so welcome to the Module 2.2 online meeting. And as I said, this is going to be recorded for later viewing by anyone who attends and also by anyone who doesn't attend. And I'm just going to need my slide advancer here. There we go. Okay, so this meeting is going to cover content related to module objectives 2.2 through 7, which all happen to relate to those searching competencies that are referred to in the assigned readings. And these are the assigned readings. You had to read like about 30 pages in chapter 3 of the main textbook. This chapter was by Hartzell and Fineout over Holt. And then you also were assigned to read chapters 1 through 3 in Girard. And then just the purpose of this reading was to get you prepared for the literature research that you're going to be doing, more specifically the literature search assignment that you're going to be doing, and any additional literature research that you do to answer your PICO question. So mainly it's going to prepare you, though, for the results of your literature research, prepare you to actually manage the results of your literature research. Okay. Now, these are those searching competencies that are displayed in the chart in your textbook and also described. So those are what we're kind of striving for, just that you kind of achieve some basic searching competency so that as you move forward, not only for your assignments in this class, but for your graduate project and for future opportunities that you have to do any evidence-based practice projects, and you'll have some familiarity and some competence in doing literature research. Okay, so I just wanted to review the activities that have been assigned in Module 2, which goes on for, I think, 5 weeks. So we've got another week after this week, and then we'll move on to Module 3. So you were supposed to view YouTube video content about searching CINAHL and Medline databases, and I provided links to those videos in Module 2. And they were relatively short, I believe. And the main things about those videos were that they showed you how to look for subject headings, how to search and select subject headings in those 2 specific databases. And that was to be done before you participated in the search terms wiki, which isn't, let's see, actually, was it due? Yeah, the search terms wiki was the next item on the list, and you're supposed to have contributed to that by last Sunday, a week ago Sunday. And then you were supposed to also have posted a tentative list of your inclusion and exclusion criteria that you'd apply to the results of your search for evidence to answer your PICO question. Then due this Sunday as a summary of your consultation with a reference librarian to be posted in the Module 2.2 discussion forum. And you're also supposed to run a trial search of evidence to answer your PICO question, just based on what you know at this time. It doesn't have to be a perfect search or anything like that, just kind of work to show your skills as to where they're at this time. And then looking ahead for the last week, you're going to create a master folder, which is described in the readings in the Girard textbook. And then you will turn around and reply to all the messages that you've posted so far in this module to kind of update what you know since you initially posted those messages. Right. Okay, so then this is the basic agenda for this meeting, which, I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to last. It kind of is determined by how long it takes for me to do the first item on the agenda, which is an online search demo to identify literature to answer a PICO question that I use as an example. And that is, for nursing students, what interventions for test anxiety or exam stress have been evaluated? Okay, and I actually have done a review that's been published about that topic. So I'll draw from those examples. And then I want to discuss, or just kind of give you an update on my problem introduction assignment grading status. and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. Okay, and these are just your textbook readings. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and escape the agenda or presentation. And if I can find the right screen here. Okay, so now you should see a blank screen. Is that right, Carolyn?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. I don't know if you're not muted. Okay, I was gonna say if you're muted, don't worry about it. You can just unmute, and if it gets noisy, then you can mute yourself. But if you want to just keep it on, that's fine too. Okay, so then I just want to run through real quick what the demo is going to cover. Okay, so we're gonna go over some definitions of search terms, then to talk about some determining databases to search. What you're seeing here basically are the major sections of that literature search assignment that's coming up about a week after we finish module 2. Then you'll construct, execute, and document the search strategy and results, and then you'll select appropriate evidence to read and organize that evidence. So this is the procedure I'm going to be following when I do this demo. So the next thing I'm going to do is just open up. I'm going to get the Google browser up, and I will get this document off the screen. Now, have you've met with your reference librarian, Carolyn, already? And yes, how did that go? Okay. Who did you meet with?
I met with Ruth at Allen.
Okay. And did you come away with the what you were supposed to come away with when you met with her? Because we've had a little bit of trouble.
Right. I mostly did. I mean, there's a few things I wish I would have asked or could have asked, and I still could, I guess.
Yeah, don't hesitate to schedule another appointment with her. Even don't feel like you have to come to campus. She can consult with you over the phone. You could actually do a Teams meeting like we're doing right now, too. Okay. So
it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to meet multiple times with the reference librarian. So don't feel bad if you have to do that. I realize that time is of the essence, but also want you to be able to get the help that you need, because this demo I'm going to do just shows my abilities as a searcher, and I do not consider myself an expert. So if I were going to go embark on a project, an evidence-based practice quality improvement project, or any type of project that would involve synthesizing literature to determine what the best practice would be, I would definitely consult with a reference librarian to make sure that my search strategy was going to be efficient and productive. So with that, I am going to log into Allen College's subscription to EBSCOhost. I'm going to do that through the Student Services course, which is a good way to do this if you're working off campus. Although lately I've been hearing there's some issues with availability of full text, regardless of whether you access EBSCOhost this way or not. And I'm sure that that will be announced to students if it's something that impacts you. But I go into the Student Services course, go into the online resources file for the library resources area, and then I want to go specifically in EBSCOhost. But this shows you all the links to the databases that you can access because Allen College has a subscription to them. But for the purposes of this assignment, I'm just going to focus on EBSCOhost because it allows me to search both CINAHL, the Cumulative Index to Nursing and Allied Health Literature, as well as Medline. Okay, so now when you first log in, you'll see that these databases are all selected. We've got Medline already selected, but I want to start out just searching CINAHL. So I'm going to deselect all them and just pick CINAHL. All right, so I've done that. And that's really how you should search when you do this. You should search one database at a time if your intent is to perform a systematic, comprehensive search. Okay, so I've got that up. And then the next thing I want to do is open up my search terms table. And you guys were supposed to post search terms in your the wiki, search terms wiki. And so this is going to look a little different than that because I didn't actually, I think I might have posted examples in that search terms wiki, but here are my search terms for my PICO question for nursing students: what interventions for test anxiety or exam stress have been evaluated? Okay. And you're able to see the table, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so the first thing I did was I look at keywords, all right? And you'll notice that I'm just picking out keywords for my P component, the population, and my O component, because I'm not looking for specific interventions. And I could put in there, I could use intervention as a keyword, but I think it might be more limiting than productive. So I've left it out. And I know this based on experience. I also didn't, of course, include a comparison condition because that would be just like putting in an intervention. And I didn't put a time component in. So I think often students are going to find that putting a time component in might not be the best strategy unless you're particularly interested in an intervention that's been tested over a specified period of time. And then in that case, you might want to put in a time component. Okay. So you can see that first I picked out keywords, and what you'll see here is, I mean, for nursing students, how you enter those is like just a partial word, okay? And I use an asterisk to denote that I truncated or chopped off the word. And that's so that this will get variations in those terms. It'd get nurse student, it would get nurse students, it would get just different variations that I wouldn't get if I actually put in nursing student or nursing students. So whether it's plural or singular. And then for testing, I tried to think of all the terms that you could use to refer to an academic exam. And so I've got testing, test taking. I got test taking with a hyphen in it, academic testing. And I've got, looks like I then kind of combined them together with test taking or test taking hyphenated or academic test. Okay, so this part right here is how I would actually combine those terms in a search. And you'll notice I put these terms are in red because what I found out is that because test has various synonyms, I was getting, when I did the search, I was getting articles that had to do with diagnostic tests. And the same goes for examination. I was getting materials related to like health assessment and examinations related to like doing an assessment on a patient or doing some sort of an exam on a patient. So I ended up eliminating those terms when I actually searched. And then for anxiety and stress, you can see that I just used the specific terms and I truncated them to make sure I would catch the variations of those terms. Another way that you might see, depending on the database you use for truncating, would be to use a $ instead of the asterisk. But as far as I know, for CINAHL and Medline, you would use an asterisk to truncate. Okay. Then as we move down, here are some more synonyms, and they're really, I mean, nursing student, the synonym was student nurse. There wasn't a lot of variation there. And then this is where my term exam came in instead of just test. And I also have in there examination performance is a term. But you have to be really careful about how you arrange the terms so that you don't eliminate articles or sources that you might otherwise get depending on how you arrange the terms. And then stress and anxiety, again, were simply just swapped because I considered them, or I treated them like synonyms of each other, even though that's not really true in real life. Okay, so those were basically keywords and synonyms. And then I moved into actual databases that I wanted to search. And you can search within the database to find the controlled vocabulary within those databases that map to your keywords and synonyms. And okay, and so that's when you see MM, that means, I think it means it's a major subject heading. There's different letters that you'll see before some of these subject headings that denote the level of that heading within the thesaurus in that database is thesaurus. Okay, and so then you can just see, looking across, what the variations are and how I came up with the subject headings. But I actually had to spend some time in each database, and this is what I was hoping you would get from your meeting with the reference librarian, is some guidance on how to search for the subject headings that match or map to your keywords and synonyms. Okay, and then I did the same process in Medline to identify subject headings. And what I find is that in Medline and CINAHL, a lot of the subject headings are the same. Okay, so they are redundant of each other, which is not a problem when you're searching. I also, because I had access to them, I looked in Psych Info and Psych Articles. I believe Allen College has subscription to EBSCOhost includes Psych Info. I don't think it includes Psych Articles, but I was able to access that database through my access to St. Louis University's online subscription to EBSCO. The difference, they're both American Psychological Association databases. The difference is that for Psych Articles, it's all full text. And whereas Psych Info is going to contain both full text and not full text availability. Okay. I also investigated the ERIC database, which is Educational Resources Index, I believe. But you find lots of education-related literature in there. And since I was interested in nursing students and nursing education, it seemed appropriate that I search the ERIC database. So you can see that I found a lot of terms for test, academic test in that database. So those are all listed in here. And you can see there's variations. High stakes tests is in there. Licensing examination was in there, which I did not find that in CINAHL. And then there were no terms for stress in the ERIC database, but there were for anxiety. And so that pretty much does it for my search terms table. And then what you're seeing in this next table here is how I could combine my searches of each of the single terms together to do one single search. And that's something you might want to do. And then further on going down the road, after you've actually done your initial search, then you can repeat your search this way. This just shows kind of how they're connected by Boolean operators. So nursing students and all the related terms would be connected with an and to test and anxiety, but anxiety or stress would be what I would want to search for, because I don't want to search for anxiety and stress, because that would only get me literature that had both anxiety and stress as subject headings or key terms in it. And you may not find that. You probably are going to find either or. You might find both, but in any rate, connecting them with or is going to get both forms of the literature. Okay, and then scrolling on down, here's what it looks like if you combine those searches that I just displayed in that table above. Okay, so I would have all the nursing student terms here. I would combine them using and to all the test and exam terms. And then I would combine that with using and to anxiety or stress. And then just another way to look at it is here's with all the paragraph returns removed. So theoretically, I could in the future copy this and paste it into a search field and just run the search on all of those. Searching multiple databases if I wanted to. But initially, when you're doing your search, you want to search one database at a time and one term at a time. And so that's what I'm going to do next. But before I do, I just want to note that, okay, so, and we're not this far yet in the reading of the Girard textbook, but this table, my search terms table, and the table that you will ultimately create for your literature search assignment, that table is comparable to a document that you will file in the keywords subfolder of the paper trail folder. Now, you should have, I believe for this module, created a paper trail folder, or you will do that at some point in this module. And so what you're looking at right now is my master folder for exam stress, or I could also put test anxiety there. Okay, so in the paper trail folder is where you would file your keywords or search terms list. All right, just so going forward, if that doesn't make sense now, it will going forward. All right. All right, so the next step in the search process is to determine the databases you're going to search. Now, given your PICO question, there may be lots of different databases that you should search. For this class and for assignments, I'm just requiring that you search the CINAHL database and Medline, and that's mainly for convenience and to also not burden you with excess time requirements, and also just to make the assignment feasible to do. Because if you're searching a whole lot of databases, then the assignment is just going to take longer and longer to do. All right, so that's the reason I've just chosen CINAHL and Medline. Now, you could search PubMed instead of Medline, but then you need to go through a different access. Basically, PubMed covers Medline. Also, depending on where you are employed and the libraries that you have access to, those libraries may have different databases that also include PubMed. For example, Embase is a database that covers actually Medline. So if you searched Embase, you would be searching Medline. So that would be an alternative to actually searching Medline within Allen College's subscription to EBSCOhost. Okay, so you determine those databases you're going to search, and you want to document that, and that document is going to go in the bibliographic databases subfolder of the master folder, or of the paper trail folder. So I'm back to that now. So I'm in the paper trail folder, and there's a bibliographic databases folder. Now, right now, what you see in here basically is just all my searches, but you could have a list of databases in there, which is what I think this is. This really just is kind of redundant of my key terms folder, but it shows my databases here in this column. So it's really not just a list strictly of databases, but it does contain them. So that's why I filed it here instead of just filing another list with the databases I've searched. Okay. So we've determined our databases we're going to search, and then we need to construct and execute our search strategy. But that you need to have established your inclusion and exclusion criteria. And so I'm just going to bring up my example of the literature search assignment, so I can show you how I arranged my inclusion and exclusion criteria in my sample version of the literature search assignment, which is posted in the assignment folder in the assignments area of the course. It's posted as an example. So here's what I listed as my inclusion and exclusion criteria. And it's going to vary. Your inclusion and exclusion criteria is going to vary depending on the type of PICO question you state and the purpose of your search. So that's just to keep in mind. This just shows some general characteristics, like you might look at participant characteristics, the types of interventions that were tested, the language of the publication, which I'm assuming in most cases, our students are going to have to restrict the literature to English language publications because they won't be able to speak a different language that the article might be published in. So if an article is published in a language other than English, you either need to be able to speak that language or you need to find someone who can translate the article for you, which is kind of probably not going to be feasible. So that's why I put language in there as a inclusion exclusion criteria. And often your inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria are just opposites. So it seems kind of strange that you list them both, but mine do look a little different, as you can see. So types of outcomes is another, and types of publications. For certain types of systematic reviews that are done, you might include non-research publications as well as research publications. But in many truly systematic reviews, like a meta-analysis, then that's going to include only publications that report studies that all use the same design, like a randomized controlled trial or a quasi-experimental study. Okay. And then you might limit it to actually types of studies. So, for example, RCTs, non-randomized controlled trials, experimental, quasi-experimental. And for my study, I limited to quantitative, qualitative, and quality improvement projects related to classroom tests. So I had a broad range that I would permit as keeper publications for my search. And I excluded any type of source that wasn't a report of an empirical study or a quality improvement project. Okay. So those are my inclusion and exclusion criteria. And the reason that you state those is because it helps to define the boundaries of the literature that you're going to gather. It keeps you from being unfocused and getting totally distracted by a lot of literature that maybe will not end up being relevant to answering your PICO question. Okay, and it's kind of interesting, you establish the inclusion and exclusion criteria theoretically before you ever run your search strategy or before you ever actually do any searching, but you don't actually use the inclusion and exclusion criteria till later in the process when you are screening your records that result from your search and when you're actually selecting the sources that you're going to download and read. All right, so the next thing I want to do is do some searching. So I'm already logged in to EBSCOhost, and as you know, I chose CINAHL right now, and I'm just gonna show you how you might search for some subject terms. So like nursing student is one of my key terms. All right, and so notice here, and this doesn't occur with all the individual databases that you might search. For example, if I left all of those databases that are checked by default when I first logged in, then I wouldn't see this option to check for subject terms. So it's only when you have certain individual databases selected that you'll see this option. And that's why it's a good idea to search one database at a time initially, because different databases will have different controlled vocabulary. So they'll have different subject terms for the same term. All right, so I've got that suggest subject terms box checked, and I have nursing student. So then I do search. And apparently I waited too long, and so my access timed out. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to deselect all the databases, select only CINAHL, continue, and go back and try that again. So nursing student is my P component, and I've spelled it wrong, so that's going to get me in trouble right away. All right, that looks good. So I'm going to do search. All right, so you get a list of the subject headings that map to that term. Okay, and so what CINAHL suggests is that I use students nursing. All right, so then I find that term, students nursing, and I want it as a major concept. Okay, and then I'm going to search databases, and this is going to get a ton of records, 17,886 records in the CINAHL database from various journals that have nursing students as a major heading or a major subject. All right, so am I going to look through those? No, I am not, but they are going to remain in my search history. So if I just click on search history, I can see here that I've run one search and it was on nursing students. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is for now. And then, now why did that happen? Did I just get kicked out of EBSCOhost? Huh. Well, I'm back where I was. All right, so then if I think back on my, and basically I would follow the same process in PubMed as I'm doing right now. I would search on anxiety and stress and testing, and eventually I would compile all of those terms that I showed you in my search terms or my keywords database. So that's how I basically came up with all the terms that I eventually resulted in this. Okay. So I've already done all that. Let me just do one more. We're going to try anxiety, and I'm going to go ahead and type in anxiety. Okay, so there's anxiety as a subject term. I want it to be a major concept. So I search on that. And so there it is. So we've got students, nursing, and anxiety. And you can see there's almost 18,000 hits for anxiety as well. So I'm going to clear that. And then I'm going to also search on test. All right, and you can see you get a lot of diagnostic tests there. So none of those really fit. None of those subject terms fit what I want. So I'm just going to search on it, test as a keyword. And it's probably going to make, oh, I guess I can't do it. I can't select it as a major concept. It's going to make CINAHL explode probably because that term is going to be so rampant. Yeah, there's 500,000 or more than 500,000 hits there. Okay, so then the next thing I might do is I'm just, instead of moving on and adding the term interventions or something like that, or stress, I'm just going to go ahead. Well, actually, maybe I'll put stress in here. We'll just see. Okay. Whoops, not stress. Okay, so stress is there. And I can kind of scroll down and see if any of the other, I'm looking, for psychological stress. And I'm thinking there's just this kind of generic term there. So I'm going to search on it as a major concept. And it's going to be like, no, that's not that many. It got about 5,000 hits. All right, so then I'm going to clear this out. And I want to do a couple of things here. Now I'm going to, since I'm considering stress and anxiety to be very similar conditions, I'm going to combine those searches with OR. So I click their search boxes and then I click OR. Okay, so that combined them. So it combined S2 and S4. And then I want to click that. And then I want to search on, I want to combine test and stress and anxiety. So I'm going to click test and I'm going to click the combined search of, combined search of stress and anxiety. And I'm going to combine those with and. Okay, so now I have stress or anxiety and test combined. You can see there's quite a few results there. So now I'm going to add nursing students to that. You got to remember to clear this out or you'll get fouled up. Okay, so it's going to be nursing students, stress or anxiety and test. And I'm going to combine those with and. And we got 85 hits. So that's a doable or a reviewable number. It's a real manageable number for one database. Now, one thing that's handy about CINAHL is that you can sign in, you can create an account, and then you can save your searches in that account and go back and return to them as often as you want, depending on how long you tell it to save the search. And I'm going to actually go in there because now I want to bring up some of the old searches that I've run and demonstrate further what we're doing. Okay, yeah, so here's my sign in. Okay. These are search results. And I actually want to look, I'm signed in now and I want to be able to, I'm going to see what's in my folder. So I've got things saved in there. So you can see in my folder, I have some articles saved. I have 4 saved searches in there. You can create this account free too. I highly recommend that you do it. You can do the same thing if you go into the PubMed database. You can create a personal account to save sources. Okay, so I've got the collaborative testing and nursing education search, a search on the motivated strategies for learning questionnaire, shivering or warming after cardiac surgery, and here's my test anxiety and stress in nursing students. And it looks like it says the last time I ran that was in 10/26, which seems like, or of 18, which I think it's been more recent than that. But anyway, I'm going to retrieve this saved search. Okay, so there it is. And you can see, yeah, this is my most recent search. So this is what I ran last fall when I did this demonstration. Okay, so here are all the saved searches that I ran on single terms and then combined terms. And then you can see here I searched on nursing students. Next, I searched on anxiety. Then it was tests. Then it was stress. Then I did a combination of anxiety and stress. But then I went on further to do other combinations. And then I started entering my keywords and subject headings. Okay, so these were all the keywords and subject headings from nursing student. And these were all the keywords and subject headings for test. And probably exam in there too, achievement test, aptitude test, yeah, exit examination. So all my keywords related to an academic test are in there. And then looks like we have some keywords for and subject headings for anxiety and then stress. And then I start combining those again. And you have to kind of think about this, and I don't know how much math experience anyone has had, but the logic is much like putting together a math equation. Okay, so using the Boolean operators and grouping things in parentheses. But by the way, the parentheses, they're not necessarily required, but I like to enclose major concepts or variables or terms within a set of parentheses to kind of keep them separate or corralled from the other major concepts. And then you connect all those with the appropriate Boolean term and or. You can also use not, but I have never done that. You can use not to exclude certain literature, but you need to do so with caution because you could exclude relevant literature. And so usually I think you can get by without not. I mean, a reference librarian who has expertise in doing this and using not would be able to advise you better on whether or not you should introduce that term. But essentially then, this was my last search after I combined all my searches. And I can view the details, I think. Oh, that doesn't show me. I can actually rerun the search, or I might be able to edit it. Okay, that just allows, I thought maybe edit would show the terms, but it just allows you to apply limiters. So I don't want to do that at that time. I'm going to cancel. All right, but I'm just going to go ahead, instead of going step by step through all this again, I'm going to run my last search. Okay. And it got 128 sources. Okay. Now, so the next thing you want to do then, after you've searched this database, is all of these hits, you want to add them to a folder. And I thought there was a way to add them all. And here's the folder up here. I thought there was a way to add them to that. And I want to make sure I don't already have any sources in here. Articles. Well, these are all the articles I have in here, so I'm going to get rid of all of them. Before I add my new search results to that folder. Okay. So it looks like I have to go down through here and I have to enter all of these. The reason that you want to add all of these results to a search folder is so that you can download them so that you know how many records your search returned. And that doesn't mean that you're going to actually be obtaining and reading all of those records. But you do want a record of how many hits or records you got with your search. And like I said, I was thinking there was a way to select all of them here, but it's looking like you have to, let's see, page options. It's looking like I'm going to have to go through and select all those to download them to keep track, and that's going to take me a long time. So I'm just going to select a few. And it looks like everything that's at the top here probably is the most recent literature. So like here's one for hand massage, and for test anxiety and self-efficacy in nursing students. And that's usually the way they come out. They're arranged in the order of publication. But this is how you add them to a folder so that you can take a further look. And I've only got 10 results showing here, but so what I would do is I would probably scroll to each new page and select those and add them to the folder so that I could export the records to either an Excel spreadsheet or to a reference manager software. Okay, so those I added to a folder. One thing I want to do here now is, okay, I'm going to print my search, or I'm going to look at my search history again. And you can print your search history. So that's one way to capture the number of hits that you got after you were done running your search. Okay, so that's just my search history I want. So that's one thing that you'd want to print and download, because this shows me your search strategy. Okay, so I'm just gonna right click and say print. And I'm gonna print this to PDF. And I am going to save them in the bibliographic databases subfolder of my master folder. And I have to get there. So okay, of my paper trail folder. So I'm going to say this is my CINAHL search on 02-19-20. Okay. So I saved that. All right, now I want to get rid of that. I want to close this. Okay. So that was my search history. I thought there was a way to print all your records that you got here. So search results. I'm going to try the share here. Results. Oh, here we go. Here is how I can add my search to my folder. And that will make it possible for me to download all the records. So I did that. All right, so now all 128 of those sources should be in my folder up here. And this is one of 10. It doesn't appear that they went in there. So I'm going to go back and see what's going on. Maybe I have to show every page. I'm going to try to display 50 results per page. And then I'm going to see if I can get those to go to.
I can't see anything. Oh, there we go. I can't hear anything anymore. Lisa, I can't hear you. I still don't hear anything.